just don't know what really causes this phenomenon. So this has been going on for a very long time, but every time it happens, the scientists come up with a new far-fetched explanation for it. We just don't know what really causes this phenomenon. And that's what the witnesses are always describing, incredible as it is.
Welcome to Don't Turn Around, a podcast about the extraordinary and the unexplained and the often profound impact these events have on our lives. This is a space for stories about the human experience and how it intersects with the paranormal. If you've got a story and you'd like to share it, don't hesitate to shoot me a note at dtapodcastinfo@gmail.com. Would love to chat, would love to hear your story, and possibly even get you on the show. Thank you so much to the Don't Turn Around community. Without you, this show would not be possible. Thank you so much for your 5-star reviews on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify. Those reviews help immeasurably getting these stories out to more ears. So if you haven't yet left the show a review, I'd ask you to consider hitting that pause button, swing by to your preferred platform, drop a review, leave a comment. That would make me very happy. And again, really helps the show in so many wonderful ways. Special thanks to the Patreon community. Without your support, we would have a hard time keeping the servers up and running and keeping the lights on. So thank you so much for your contributions. Now let's get into the show. Tonight's guest is an internationally renowned author, speaker, Norse mystic, and spiritual teacher with over 30 years of experience guiding people through supernatural and spiritual challenges. He's had a lifelong connection with entities he calls the Whisperers, granting him insights into the afterlife, spiritual attachments, and ways to safely communicate with beings beyond our reality. His core mission is helping awakened souls transcend inner limitations, clear negative energies and entities, while developing intuitive gifts and forming safe, effective spiritual practices. Kaedrich Olsen, welcome so much to Don't Turn Around.
Thank you, Phil, for having me. This is great. I'm excited to dive into this with you today.
Yeah, I'm so excited to chat, and I don't doubt that we won't get to everything here. So there's so much to talk about. But where I would like to start is your origin story, your early experiences that got you onto the path to where you find yourself today.
Believe it or not, but I was literally born into the paranormal.
Interesting.
My mom's OBGYN, when she was pregnant with me, was Dr. Robert Bradley, the inventor of the Bradley natural childbirth method.
Yes.
But he also held séances in his home in the Denver area.
No kidding.
And as a kid, the church my parents took us to was a spiritualist church, the Temple of Harmony Spiritualist Church in Denver, where it's like your typical Protestant church. Mm-hmm. But after service, 1 to 3 trance mediums come up on stage and they do channeling.
Wow.
Dr. Bradley was a regular lecturer at the church, and I attended a number of his lectures, got to meet him, talk with him in person. And then every Saturday night in the church basement, there were séances.
No kidding.
As part of that, my mom got me into psychic development classes when I was early teens. And the house I grew up in was built on old farmland, very old farmland. Mm. And you could hear boots walking down the hallway. Back in the day, you know, I was a kid, and the TV had the dials, the physical dials, where you actually had to walk across the room. And as you're watching TV, you could see the dials move. Something was changing the channel. Radios would turn on. My mom had music boxes that would just turn on. So one time, all of her music boxes went off at the same time, all of them. So I grew up with this, you know, as a kid. I was already in communication with spirits. I didn't, you know, I thought, you know, imaginary friends like everybody else has.
Of course.
But we weren't playing games. They were teaching me things.
Yeah.
They were guiding me. You know, I lived in the basement because it's where the kids lived in the house.
Yeah.
And as the youngest of 3, I was eventually alone in that basement. And man, there was so much activity down there. So I say I literally grew up with it. I was born with it. My kids grew up with it. It's just a normal, natural part of my life.
It's just woven into the threads of your being.
It really is.
That's remarkable. So I'd love to hear about some of those early experiences, some of those encounters. And I'm going to pause. I don't know. Can you hear the dogs barking?
No.
I do find it interesting that once at the moment you started talking about your house and your experiences I mean, they've been quiet for hours, is right when they decided to start barking. And I had an interesting experience. This is a total side note. My house is not haunted, really by any stretch, but I believe very much that we get interlopers, that energies come through, whether it's something that's maybe temporarily clinged onto us from an investigation or just for whatever reason, since we are such an open household to it, that things tend to pass through. And the other week, my daughter was saying she was here alone. My wife and I were at the grocery store, and she was hearing strange noises in the house. She thought it was the ocean wave sounds we had playing for the dogs, but she heard a whistling, and I figured, okay, that was probably just coming through the Google Home system. But as I was down here doing some prep for the show, I heard the whistling, and it gave me the sound wasn't disturbing, but I just had that sense of the full body chills you get when something may or may not be going on. And the dogs barking just made me think of that. So I think the house is a little charged today. So we'll see what happens as we're chatting. But that's my side note. But I do want to hear about some of those early experiences, and maybe even when you started to process that, okay, these aren't just imaginary friends. There's something more going on here. I want to hear how it all kind of came together.
It came together almost naturally, because one of the things about our first 20 years of our life is that shapes our sense of reality,
For sure.
Our family dynamics, the culture we're growing up in, the society around us. That's how the world works to us. And for me, to have spirits around all the time, to have the ghostly figures, the apparitions, that was normal. But what I find very interesting about it is, to me, I will say I was scared for a while. I'll talk about that in a minute.
Yeah.
But my sister fully rejects it. She thinks it's scary, even though she grew up with it, even though we experienced, the footsteps. We experienced the toilet flushing downstairs when we were upstairs, She knows this is real. She knows it's a very absolute real thing, but it just scares her so much. And I can't blame her, because I guess one of the moments when it really started to set in was when I was 7 years old. Went to my grandmother's house, and she had HBO way back in the days when it was a satellite dish, before cable TV, and The Exorcist just came out on HBO. And so I'm 7 years old at my grandmother's house for really the only time I stayed overnight.
Yeah.
And it scared the heck out of me. And what that started was two different things. Is I couldn't go to sleep without being aware of what my consciousness was doing, what my awareness was like. And then I would go to sleep step by step in layers of consciousness, which was very helpful.
Yeah.
And it also taught me to realize what were my thoughts versus thoughts coming in, communication coming in. And it started off the discrepancy, meaning I'm seeing these scary shows on TVs because I've always loved scary shows, even since I was a really little kid, but they scared the heck out of me.
Yes.
And I'd still watch them, and I'd see all this scary stuff, the Amityville Horror House, Poltergeist, all that stuff. I'm like, But the experience I was having, I'm like, this isn't scary. These things aren't terrifying, but yet I'd be scared. There are times in the church basement with seance, I'd be like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And I'm like, but wait. So it took me a while as a kid to clear up that discrepancy, that this is the fictional representation, that this really isn't a scary thing, that this isn't terrible and awful. It's just the movies. It's just make believe. And that what I was experiencing, and then that led to another discrepancy of, reading the New Age books and going to the New Age scene and having people talk about it. And I'm like, that still doesn't match up. That's not quite what's here. And so I'm loving where we are today, where we are able to discern the fiction from the reality. We're able to in both in the New Agey community as well as the movies and the TV shows versus what the real experience is. And we're finding that it's something totally different. So that was the big process, is figuring out that discrepancy. Why is it so different than what I'm experiencing?
Yeah, it's so wild again that you bring up that very topic. Almost maybe a little bit of a synchronicity. Currently, I'm working on a book, a paranormal sort of memoir of my experiences, of just my life journey and how the paranormal has sort of fit into that. And the chapter that I'm currently revising right now is all about fear, all about that discrepancy, all about acknowledging fear is it's an emotion. It's another emotion. And like any emotion, happiness, sadness, it's influenced by our life experiences, it's influenced by the media that we consume. And it takes a level of self-awareness to look at that fear and say, what's going on? And now, is it my lizard brain telling me to be afraid? Or is it my emotional side telling me to be afraid? Or is it my logical mind? And then where it all sort of comes together. So it's a topic that's near and dear to my heart, and it's fascinating to me. And kudos to you. Those levels of sort of self-awareness at such a young age is absolutely tremendous.
And it's served me over the years because, as we're talking, my mission is to help people realize that the supernatural is actually a natural part of our world.
Yes.
The paranormal is completely normal. I once had somebody ask me, well, why is it always at their hauntings in like old locations? Why are spirits only showing up in, old taverns and old hotels? And I'm like, they're not.
Right.
They're everywhere. Right. They're interlopers moving through our house. Yeah. They're energy fields. Their spirits just wander everywhere. When you're hanging out at home and you suddenly get this warm, fuzzy feeling and you're remembering your mom or dad or grandma or somebody who's passed on, that's them showing up and saying, hey, how are you doing?
Yeah. Do you think that in your experience working with people directly linked to that question of why is it always the old spooky places that are haunted, do you think it's more that we are more in that open mindset in those spooky places because that's what we expect? And we don't expect a ghost to sit down on the couch next to us while we're watching reruns of Friends.
I love that question because that goes right back to the veil, the whole concept of the veil between the worlds. When we hear, it's at midnight or 3 a.m. I don't know when it moved from midnight to 3 a.m., but somehow it's now 3 a.m. Somebody got their time zones in the spirit world off.
Yes.
Or if you're in a cemetery or in these haunted locations, the veil is the thinnest. And I will agree, maybe there's like an energy nexus or a portal in some places, like the Conjuring House.
Yeah.
For sure. But it's exactly what you said. We are the veil. So when we are expecting there to be paranormal activity, when we are open to receiving and to experiencing, we're letting ourselves be open.
I see.
Then we are the veil because we're thinning it. And then maybe we're at home and we're like, no, and we're at work and we're in our mundane world, a day-to-day world. Oh, the veil's thickest. No, you're just not tuned in.
Okay. Yeah. I really, really like that. That resonates. Do you think, just in terms, and I know time is a funny thing. It's very much a human construct, right? It's not linear. That's just our perception of it. But I think you can certainly attest to having experiences that speak to otherwise in terms of just the very nature and shape of time. I have always found, especially with investigations, it seems that, and again, this could be because I've programmed myself to sort of feel that way, but there are these liminal times, in particular, dawn before the sun is coming up or at twilight, where I've found that we experience more activity. And do you feel like those transitional times can thin the veil or thin our own personal veils in a way?
Definitely, in a way. I love that you said liminal because that is something that carries through to spiritual traditions of all sorts all over the world, where liminal, and you're between states, you're between one day and the next, you're between one floor and the next, which is why they show up on stairs. Mm-hmm. Or if you go into a ceremony, a spiritual ceremony, you're in liminal space. Yeah. And that's why I have a lot of clients when they start bringing their abilities back online, when they start to become more aware, they can't get to sleep very well because there's a lot of spiritual activity going on around them. And like you're saying, they're noticing at those moments when they're starting to go to sleep or when they're starting to wake up. And that's because we are less attached to our concrete mind, the neocortex and the prefrontal cortex. And we're more into our intuitive mind, which is where the spirits will speak to us intuitively. And so we will experience more of that activity during those moments because we're more in tune with our intuition, which is how they're going to speak with us.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. Now, in terms of, your younger days, so you started to really accept and question, before you were in double digits, right? And so as you progressed into your teenage years, as we were sort of developing this sense of identity, this sense of purpose, and it can be very confusing as teenagers, right?
Yep.
Did you find the opposite a little bit because you had been having these experiences and you had been having these moments of self-awareness? Did you find in your teenage years you struggled with identity, or that you had a bit more focus?
Oh, I've struggled, I think, even more because of it.
Yeah. Okay.
Because to me, what people consider the paranormal, it was just like everyday thing. And the kids around me weren't experiencing that. So therefore I was the weirdo. I was the freaky one. I was like, who is this weird dude over here? And because I was aware of energy, because I could move energy, work with energy, other kids couldn't understand that, let alone do it themselves. So that pushed me even further. So I think it made teenage years even more difficult,
more challenging,
especially like in junior high,
Yeah.
when empathy, my Claire empathy kicked on full speed.
Oh, wow.
And being in a hallway full of hundreds of kids with all of those raging hormones and raging emotions all over the place, it was just overwhelming, which caused me to withdraw even further. So I was fairly isolated. I always had just very limited number of friends who could either tolerate, a few people could understand, but they would accept it and tolerate it. It wasn't until I got much older when I could finally get through that before I found people that are like, oh my God, yes, finally somebody that gets this, experiences this, understands that. But it was very challenging through teen years.
And was there anyone that you were able to turn to during those times, or did you try to process and manage that on your own?
I had to manage it on my own. Yes, there was the church, but they were still more only focused with adults and grown-ups, for a lot of various reasons. And I still remember one lady in the church going, oh, I don't think a teenager should be here. This is very scary, dangerous stuff. And now as an adult, I look back and I'm like, so why are you in a church like this if you think this is scary, dangerous stuff? What's a kid doing? Yeah. So I didn't. And it was what I call the whisperers, my guides.
Yeah. Okay.
My teachers that have been there. I remember being on a playground in elementary school, talking with them. But as I got older, the communication got clearer, like very clear. Yeah. And they were the ones that were guiding me.
Yeah. Okay.
And that was kind of like the challenge. It's like, I still wasn't pairing up what they were teaching me, what I was experiencing with what other people were having. So it was still a very kind of isolated experience.
Yeah, that must have been really tough. That must have been very tough. It's not easy as it is being a teenager that's not experiencing these things, right? So it makes the journey even more difficult. What would you say was the turning point for you when you went from feeling isolated to starting to feel that purpose?
It was a slow progression, because I read an interesting article recently that talks about one of the more difficult traumas that people face in childhood. It definitely, trauma is trauma. It is. But they were surprised to find that it was not being picked was very traumatic.
Yeah.
Because if we can get the anger, we can get the frown, we can get the disappointment. Yes, it sucks. But they said nothing sucks worse than just kind of being left alone.
Yeah.
Kind of being left out. And that was where that was. And so it took a long time, growing up through various jobs, going into adulthood, knowing that even if I tried to be normal, people said, oh, wow, you're such a weirdo. And it was only when I said, fine, this is who I am. I am the weirdo. I accept it. This is what I am. I'm going to express it. I'm going to be it. I'm just going to fly my freak flag. Then the people came around to me and they're like, wow, you're like the most interesting person I've ever met. I love talking with you. And then suddenly it resonated. So it took me first accepting myself, accepting that weirdness, saying, nope, this is who I am. And then it took realizing that's actually my superpower. The thing that made me the weirdo was my superpower.
Yes. I love
that. Self-acceptance brought all the other acceptance from the people around me that could understand it and connected with me.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I mean, it's hard to be your authentic self when you are not accepting yourself. It's when I say hard, it is impossible. And that sort of growth and expansion and acceptance, it's not pretty. It's not pretty. It is hard work. It's tough, but the reward, that's what's pretty, right? That's where the beauty is when you get there. It's just not an easy path to walk.
And what you're talking about in my terms is shadow work.
Yes.
And that's why shadow work is a big part of what I do, especially when people have their paranormal abilities come online, their psychic awareness comes online, because they grew up with people saying that's evil, that's demonic, those are demons trying to capture you, or no, this is just stupid, you're making this up. Right. And if you keep talking so there's a lot of this inner dialogue that shuts them down, as well as the fear from the movies and the TV shows. Like, oh, am I encountering something scary? And so we do that shadow work to release those false facades, the false identity that is built up, so they can discover who they are authentically and then tune in and like, oh, the big lie was that this was evil. The truth is, no, this is normal. This is a natural state of being human.
Yeah. Let's drill a little bit into that shadow work. It's a term that I think a lot of people have heard, but don't really know the essence of what shadow work really is. And so can you share with the listeners some of the nuts and bolts of shadow work, and then talk about your own practice as far as how you are helping people with this shadow work?
Absolutely. The shadows are the things about us that we stuff down and hide from ourselves, the things that we don't want to acknowledge. Sometimes these are our gifts, our natural abilities. Sometimes there are things about ourselves that we're ashamed of or we're afraid of, the things that people told us that are awful or terrible about us. And it could be anything from our behavior to our beliefs, to the way we look, to the things that we love to do. Think about a little boy who loves dancing, and dad is like, that's not what little boys do. You need to go play football. But he has a natural talent for dancing. He loves dancing, but that's not what boys do. And if you keep dancing, you're going to get spanked. So the kid learns to be afraid of dancing. He learns to be afraid of who he is authentically. As he grows up, as he moves out, as he gets into his 20s and 30s, and he starts to explore that again, he's like, but he's going to encounter that fear. He's going to encounter that shame. Like, oh, I'm not a real man if I'm dancing. But he does that shadow work. He comes to terms with that. He understands where his dad is coming from, why his dad said these things, and that it actually didn't apply to him. That was his dad's own fear that his dad was projecting onto him. And then when he starts to clear that out, and he goes, oh, I was just protecting myself by stuffing down my love of dancing. I was keeping myself safe. That means I'm wonderful. That does mean I have this wonderful gift. That's an amazing thing about me. And now he starts to explore dancing. He's loving it. He's expressing himself. He's getting it out there. Dad still doesn't like it, but he has that inner strength to go, Dad, I love you. I know you don't like it, but I love this, and I'm going to keep doing this. And we transfer that even into the paranormal. Your abilities come online, the scary stuff, the things that people told us. I'll give you kind of the opposite side of this.
Okay.
The opposite side. There's a spirit I work with a lot. Her name is Maria. She showed up when I was doing a séance. And Maria loves coming to séance. She loves to be one of those spirits in séance, moving a pendulum, working with a Ouija board, doing the talking. But she grew up in a very strict Catholic family. That they firmly believe that's not grandma coming to visit you. That's a demon trying to take your soul. She was told all of this paranormal stuff was evil and satanic. She died. She went through the transition process. And now she's like, no, man, this is fun. And she gets a kick out of being on seance. So she kind of did her shadow work in the spirit world.
That's fascinating. I love that. And I think that, again, that does emphasize something very important, that at the very least for the human spirits, right? Because we know there are those sort of non-human energies, but for the human spirits, they were at one point flesh and blood and human, just like you and me. Now they're just in a different, they've shifted, they've transcended, they're in a different energy form. But I like to think that when we transition, that we still do maintain that personality, right? So,
Oh yeah. Sometimes it gets fun because sometimes a person will get a tricksy kind of spirit in their house, somebody that's kind of messing with things.
yeah,
My first go-to on that is like, did you mess with a nature spirit by accident? And they're kind of
right.
getting their revenge on you. And then we find out, no, it's just a human being. And when I was telling you that I had a hard time finding anybody I agreed with on the paranormal stuff, when I finally got a hold of Allan Kardec's book, I forgot the name of it, but he had a few of them that are basically, I'm not going to say channeled writing, but they're sort of automatic writing and table tapping kind of writing. I'm reading through these books and I'm like, yeah, he gets it. This is exactly what I'm experiencing. This is exactly what I was taught. I mean, it was almost to the letter. And one of the things he was writing is, if you call in an exorcist to your house and they're doing the blessing and they're doing the holy water and they're doing the power of Christ compels you,
Right.
why does it get worse? And this is what I've experienced too. Some people would do the saging in the house and they're doing the smudging and calling in the priest, but it got worse. Well, it's because you got a human in there.
Yeah.
And the human's like, oh, you think I'm a demon? Oh, this is going to be fun. Let's turn it up. Let's have fun with this.
Yeah.
But if you sit down and you have a seance and you have a respectful communication saying, who are you? Why are you here? What are you doing? And then you treat them with respect, with dignity, like you would another human being, try to understand why they're here, what's going on with them. They'll be like, oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cause such a fuss. And then you can actually build a good relationship with them and the problems stop. So you don't need to call on the exorcist. You just need to have respect.
Right. Or, I mean, at the same time, it could inspire the spirit to amp things up and play tricks and have fun with it. Or it could be offensive, or it could be frustrating and just upsetting and cause sadness because I'm not a bad being. I'm just here. I don't know what I'm doing here. And you're yelling at me and I'm just trying to figure this out. And I need some compassion.
Exactly. And that is what I call a compound haunting. The compound haunting is what happened to Dr. Bradley. I'll kind of share his story. Is he was a doctor, straight up materialist reductionist. There is no paranormal. There is no supernatural until one time he came to his parlor in the middle of the night, watched his cigar lighter lift up off of the table and fall back down. Went into the immediate fear state because now, okay, paranormal's real, ghosts are real, and it must be true that these are demons. These are scary things.
Right.
And the fear got so bad, it created a thought form, which is a type of entity we create, tried to throw him down the stairs. It broke a mirror. He still had a scar on his neck. He showed a scar at one of the lectures I went to from a mirror breaking. And so he relented. He called in the psychics. He called in the séances, and he sat down and found out it was actually the spirit of a little boy in that house that had an accident and died.
Yeah.
And the little boy was lost and scared and alone. And that immediately changed the doctor's perspective from, oh my God, what are you going to do to me? Which it creates that fear, which created all the fear problems, to, oh, is there something I can do to help you? And the moment he moved into that compassion state, all of the fear stopped.
Yeah.
And now he was able to work with that little boy. And so that's a compound haunting is we believe in the fear stuff. We create it ourselves and we generate that over and over. And we go, see, all of those demonologists are real. Ed and Lorraine Warren, they were right. These are demons trying to come get me. And it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. But when you sit down and find out what's really going on, it's like, oh, no, it's just some jerk in my house being a total dick or what. And you're like, let's go find a better place for you. And then you have a complete shift in attitude and you take back your power and things just get so much better when you do that.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. It's about taking that power back. It's about realizing that this is our plane of existence, and here we have the control and we get a say, and intention is a very powerful thing. And we always carry very strong intentions with us when we go on investigations. And we've had some interesting brushes with more negative entities. We've been drained and we've been just left not feeling great, but at the same time, knowing that ultimately we are safe because we do have those intentions, and we have our spiritual teams, and we know when to tap out too.
You know what I'm going to do? In the years past, I teach a course that is a paranormal safety training for paranormal investigators.
Yeah.
And I've got a workbook that I put together with a bunch of different practices, what to do before the investigation, during, and then after. And this was put together talking with a paranormal team when they came to me talking about attachments that they were having. Not a bad attachment.
Yeah.
It was a little boy that kept showing up wherever they went to. And it was basically muddying the results, because maybe they were in a place that didn't have a huge paranormal activity, but the boy would show up, mess with everything. And the boy was just looking for some help, just looking for some connection. So I said, would it be helpful if I put together like a class, a training course for paranormal investigators? And I'm like, yeah. And so I sat down with his team, taught his team. I've taught a few other teams this course. And now they're able to go into a place. If there's something that tries to be wonky, tries to do attack or whatever, like, oh, hey, cool, that's fun. Look, let's get a reading on that one.
Right.
And they're able to leave without being drained.
Yeah.
They're able to leave without any attachments coming home with them, because they know how to clear those out and keep them gone. So I will, when we're done here, I'll find that packet and I'll send it to you. And
that would be
any questions and comments that come back from that.
That would be brilliant. That's timely as well, because next week we're actually headed out to the Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum for the first time to do a full-fledged investigation out there. And that would be a good spot to have some extra tools at our disposal to be safe. So thank you so much for that. That's huge.
You betcha. As soon as we're done here, I'll find it and I'll send you a link to download it.
I love it. I love it. Now, in your experience, since we're sort of skirting around the territory of negativity, and I do want to emphasize to the listeners, and I'm sure you can echo the same, in our experience investigating, in our experience of being in tune, we encounter the ratio of positivity to negativity is a way more positive out there, a lot less negative. And in your experience, I mean, can you talk a little bit about the times you've encountered anything negative and how that's played out and how you handled that?
Absolutely. Negativity comes in a few different forms. The primary form, and this is really hard for a lot of people to understand, is the things we create. We create thought forms. We create servitors, tulpas, egregores. We create these things. We program them with our negativity, and they basically live off of that. It's not that they're evil. They're not demonic, but they can show up that way. We can misinterpret it that. But all they're doing is just trying to live off of the energy we're producing. And every emotion we feel, every thought we produce, every belief that we have generates an energy that they feed off of. And so they're going to do anything that they can on their side to get us to produce that energy for them.
Yeah.
And of course, we're going to misinterpret it as being attacked and evil because that's how we're seeing it. Another time negativity pops up is nature spirits.
Yeah.
These are non-human entities that live in the rocks, the trees, the streams, the air. Many, many ancient cultures and indigenous cultures know about these beings, and they work cooperatively with them. But something happened around the Middle Ages in Europe where they became evil, demonic, and shunned. And people ignore that. And so when we go and mess with something in nature, we're kind of destroying their home, messing with their home. And then they will come back to us. They will come back and feed off of us, and not feed off of us, but they will mess with us. They will be awful and terrible. And then there is a very, very tiny amount of creatures that I have yet to quite understand. I've only encountered them once, maybe twice. They're not human. I don't know where they come from or what they are, but they're still not demonic. They're buttheads. And they're icky. They're just like, okay, go away.
Right.
And they're easy to get rid of. They're super easy to get rid of, but like I said, I've been doing this for 50 years. I'm 53 years old. I literally grew up with it. I've been around it my entire life. And only 2 times have I encountered something negative that I didn't quite understand.
Yeah.
And they
Yeah.
were so easy to deal with anyway. It's super
That's a
easy.
positive.
So
That's a positive. That is a
yeah.
positive.
Yeah. So, and like you were saying, it's so much more positive out there. I would say 99.99% of paranormal activity is super positive. It's wonderful. It's beautiful. And then the rest is either self-generated or nature spirits messing with us because we messed with them.
Right. Right. Whether knowingly or unknowingly. Right.
Right.
And I think that's where self-awareness comes in, right? If we are experiencing this negativity, take a step back and say, well, is there anything that I may have done in the last 10 minutes that could have resulted in what we're experiencing now? And then how do I rectify that? How do I make that right?
Exactly. And one of the things I've been teaching people a lot lately is externalizing your agency.
Yeah.
Meaning you give control over it. Oh, they are attacking me. Oh, they are making me feel this way. Oh, they are giving this energy to me. And when you do that, you're giving up your power. You're saying, I'm powerless. I'm helpless. They're doing this stuff to me. What do I do? But the moment you stop and say, okay, yeah, sure, there's an entity in the room. Yeah, sure, it's sending energy. And not but and I'm thinking this. I am feeling this. I am having this experience. And because these are my experiences, I own this. Therefore, I can change this. I can choose what I want to think, what I want to feel. And that immediately disrupts the process just by internalizing your agency.
I love that. And I feel like that dovetails nicely with the concept of we are manifesting our own reality, and thus we are the masters of our reality.
Yep.
And that's a very handy tool to have, is that awareness.
Absolutely. And that kind of leads into some of the triage I love to share with everybody on this is as manifesting and creating our reality. I've got 10 rules of interacting with the paranormal.
Okay.
And the biggest number one rule that I tell everyone everywhere is similarities attract and perpetuate 100% of the time. So maybe there is a fear-based thought form in your house. They're pretty darn common. We make entities all the time. We don't even realize how powerfully creative we are. And you're feeling that fear coming in. You're feeling something attacking you with fear. You're like, oh, I'm under attack. There it is. So take a moment to laugh. Genuinely laugh. Put on a comedy. Fake laugh until you real laugh. Just get silly. Because remember, this thing is trying to feed off of fear energy off of you. But now you're laughing. And it's poisoning this thing. Because it doesn't like that energy. And there's a secondary gain when we go back to that compound haunting. Maybe there is grandma showing up, wants to say hi to you, and you're aware of that. But you go into that fear mode, and now that thought form is feeding off of you. And if you're generating fear, grandma doesn't want to talk to you. Grandma doesn't want to get anywhere near you.
No.
But now you start to laugh. You get rid of that fear-based thought form. You laugh. You're putting up this positive energy. And grandma's like, finally, now we get some good energy. Now we get to connect and we get to talk. And you're like, hey, grandma, I didn't realize it was you this whole time. And now this thought form is just gone because now you see the beauty of the paranormal for what it really is.
Yeah. The way you describe that, and the way you describe these more negative thought forms, I almost view it as we are creating this narcissistic energy. And everyone knows, well, let me rephrase that. It's known that if you deprive a narcissist of what they're going after, they quickly they lose their steam and you take their power away. So it's very similar, I think, to when we're dealing with real life, like real reality, physical narcissistic personalities. These negative thought forms we create are very much the same in terms of how you feed it and how you starve it.
Exactly. And that goes back into shadow work, because if we've got shadow energy inside of us, manifesting scarcity, manifesting abusive relationships, manifesting difficulties in our workplace, you're doing a beautiful job of manifesting that. You're doing great. You're an awesome manifester. But now you do your shadow work. You start to clear that off, and suddenly money comes in easier. The job is great. Oh my God, there's this great relationship. Where did that come from?
Mm-hmm.
It came from you shifting your inner world. It came from you clearing that shadow energy out so that you're manifesting a world that's more in alignment with who you are rather than who you were told to be or protecting yourself to be.
Yeah, that's a beautiful, beautiful concept. I do want to talk a little bit specifically about some of the work that you do and your concept of awakened souls and the work you do with supporting awakened souls. But let's start with the term, what you refer to as awakened souls and what that means to you.
Awakened is, I love that term too, because I always like to say good morning to people, no matter what time of day it is.
Yeah.
Because awakening is constantly happening. So why not just be morning all the time?
Yes. I like that a lot.
But awakened is that awareness that you are something more than just the physical, that there is more to the world than just the things you can touch and see and hear with your physical senses. And when you start to become aware that there's energy, that there's entities, there's beings of all kinds, and that you are a part of that ecosystem, you start to awaken. And awakening comes in so many different degrees. I still have awakenings that you start to reach new levels of understanding, new levels of awareness. It's a nonstop path of growth. So much so that I tell people that on this path of awakening, if you ever find an answer to anything that you're looking for, you're wrong. You went the wrong direction. But if you find a better way to ask the questions, you're heading in the right direction. So keep asking better and better questions. And that's what an awakened soul is. They don't have any answers, but they've got really good questions that they're exploring.
Oh, I love that. I love that very much because it's about asking the questions. It's the questions open the door and to more questions and to more expansive thinking. Now, in terms of the work that you do with these awakened souls, I know you're doing the shadow work. What other sorts of ways do you support people in this journey of awakening?
I've got a huge toolbox of stuff because I've been doing this for over 30 years in various different ways. So shadow work is part of that, getting to the root of your blocks, the self-sabotage, all of that kind of stuff. But we also do paranormal development, working on your intuitive abilities. Like what are your abilities? Are you more clairaudient, more clairsentient? How do we activate those? I teach people how spirits communicate. Because one of the things I see a lot of the times, people say, I've never had a paranormal experience in my life because they expect it to be something banging on the wall. They expect the disembodied voice or whatever, things flying across the room, but not realizing that little nudge that said, don't turn your car that way. Don't go down that street. Keep going straight. That little nudge, that little urge is actually somebody looking out for you. That's a paranormal experience. So I'm teaching people how to communicate in that universal spiritual language so that they realize that the thoughts and the feelings that they're experiencing, which ones are theirs versus which ones are communication that they're receiving, so that they can take themselves to that next level. So it's a multi-pronged approach, and it's different for everybody, but shadow work to clear this stuff out, your spiritual development, your psychic awareness, improving that one. And we do various tools. Sometimes it's just very practical stuff. Also, I've got a huge background in Norse mysticism, the Norse practice, like runes. And sometimes that comes in and plays a factor to that. I've got online courses, one-on-one training. So we have a way of covering all those bases.
All the bases. Tell me a little more about the Norse mysticism part of it. I've always been fascinated with Norse mythology. I think the folklore is absolutely beautiful. And I want to know more about what makes a Norse mystic a Norse mystic.
This is the religion and the mysticism, the spirituality that is in pre-Scandinavian or pre-Christian Scandinavia, pre-Christian Germanic area. You know, you hear names like Odin and Thor, Frey, not in the Marvel movies, but you hear those terms. You know, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, those are named after Norse gods. And they were a culture that lived with the paranormal. To them, the supernatural ancestors, land spirits were just a natural part of the world. The gods were just a natural part of their life. And it's kind of a different sort of worldview, but a little bit more about boldness, a little bit more about forthrightness, a little bit more about embracing your truth and stepping forward with that, and standing strong in being bold when you need to. But it's also that interaction, that paranormal interaction. To me, there's so many different expressions of it, because you could get 5 heathens in the room and have 10 opinions.
Yeah,
it's that kind of thing. And I got into that basically when I was in my early teens, because I realized I needed sort of a control group. I needed some sort of foundation, some sort of understanding on this energetic stuff, on what I knew later to be the consciousness interface. Basically what our consciousness is, how it interfaces with the consciousness of the universe and the energetics. That I know that now, but I got into that as the tools to learn that, to connect with that. So it became my foundation, my control group, so I could learn and grow. And I've been able to expand on that so much more.
Okay. Definitely want to learn more about that on the side from you, because it does absolutely fascinate me. Now, I want to ask, because you've had, just in what we've been able to cover in this short period of time, a remarkable human journey and a remarkable journey with the paranormal. Has there ever been a moment where, and I know we all have these, so it's almost a goes without asking type question, but where you've questioned your path, where you've questioned your abilities, and if there was such a time, how did you work through that?
It still pops up every now and then. That little wonder pops in, that little doubt. I'm like, am I sure about this? But then I go back to one of my rules out of my 10 rules. One of the rules is test and validate everything. Even if you think you trust the source, test and validate that information for its veracity. And then I go back and I look at the confirmation, the information that's come through, the connections that were made, the way people's lives have changed. And then I go, how could I ever doubt this? I remember even being a teenager going, is this real? Is this real? And then hearing the keys on my keyboard being tapped, even though it wasn't turned on or plugged in, like something trying to play music, and I can hear the keys tapping in the other room. And I'm like, oh yeah, no, I mean, there it is. It's proving itself. So it constantly proves itself all the time, even though sometimes I have that, like, is this, which is a good thing to have.
Yes.
I'll always tell people to be open-mindedly skeptical, to the point, if somebody calls me and says there's something in the house flickering the lights and it's playing with the lights and lights just won't be left alone, my first thing is, great, what did the electrician say?
Right. Yes. Absolutely. Call the electrician first. So practical.
Always test it. Always question it. And the reason why I love that is because maybe you are debunking something. Maybe you are completely debunking stuff. And that's cool. The reason why it's cool to debunk it is because maybe you're able to debunk 90% of whatever comes through is completely mundane.
Yeah.
But that 10%, that's the exciting stuff. That's the confirmation.
Yeah. I mean, the way I think of it myself is that 90% of it is explained away. 90% of it is debunkable. 90% of it gets debunked. The 10% that's left, that's the magic. And that is what proves us that magic is a real and amazing thing.
Exactly. So always question, always test it, always prove it. Even if you think it's a guide and a higher level being and think it's your higher self, it just confirms the veracity of what you're experiencing, and it proves the magic is real.
I love that. So we are getting toward the end. We're almost to the don't turn around question. But before we get there, I want to ask, do you have one, and I know this is hard to give these, do you have a one fill in the blank questions, but one piece of advice or wisdom for someone who, say, has been very connected with the paranormal, but are starting to feel disconnected, or they're drifting, they're losing focus? What's one piece of advice that you could give for someone to be able to reconnect with this spiritual world that is all around us?
Go have fun with it. Play with it. Because the biggest block, the biggest disruptor I found is people getting too serious.
Okay.
I've got to have this information. It's got to be this. I've got to have that. That'll block it. And that will help create that disconnect even further.
Yeah.
But if you're playing with it, you're having fun with it, you're going to tune in even much better. Because think about this. These are spirits on the other side. They're having a great time. They're loving it. They're going to show up at seance, and they don't want to show up at seance and have everyone like,
yeah.
They want to show up at seance and have people having a party and having fun.
Yes.
And then when you go back and you have fun with it, and, even if a book flies across the room, instead of going, oh my God, what was that? Just, oh, that was so cool. Can you do it again?
Can you do that again?
Play with it. Have fun with it. And that will tune you in so much more, because on the other side, they're playing with everything, having fun with everything too. So similarities attract and perpetuate. If you're not taking it so seriously and you're playing and having fun, you're just going to tune in automatically to it.
And do you think that it's possible as investigators out in the field to take an evidence-based approach, but to be able to have fun with it at the same time?
Oh, I hope so.
Yeah.
I absolutely hope so. Like, when that K2 meter starts going off and, you got the spirit box suddenly producing some fun stuff that you're like, ooh.
Yeah.
I think that'll just enhance the experience even more.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing that I always am fond of saying is that we have our devices here. They enhance the experience. They enable us to gather data, but our best piece of ghost hunting gear is our flesh and our bones. It's our body. It's our self, and always listen to that gear as well.
Absolutely. I once taught a class called How to Be Your Own K2 Meter.
Oh, I love that.
And it was inspired because I had a K2 meter on my desk next to me.
Yeah.
And I left it on just out of curiosity. And all of a sudden it would start spiking. And I'm like, but there's nothing in the room because I'm feeling around. And then I go back and look at it. And then suddenly it spikes again. I'm like, and I'm feeling, and there's nothing here. Why are you spiking? And then I start to look around and I realize my cell phone is like right next to the K2 meter. And I'm like, got it.
And that will do it every time. Well, this has been such an inspired conversation. I know that I'm feeling inspired to work on my awakening and awakening every moment and really trying to be present for those moments. But we are now at the point of the conversation where I get to ask the don't turn around question, which I ask all my first time guests. And I will just, without any further preamble, I will just ask, Kaedrich, do you turn around?
I thought about that, and I don't think you can. There's what I call the believing seeing dynamic.
Okay.
You believe a little bit in something that, like the paranormal, and then you'll see it a little bit, which then gives you that feedback that, oh, this is real. So you believe it even more. And then you see it even more. And then once you see it, once you experience it, it kind of builds and builds and builds until you can't turn around, when it becomes just like a known fact. Like, yes, this is an everyday thing. Everything is there. It's real. You can't turn around.
Love it. Love it so much. Tell my listeners where they can find out about all the incredible things that you're doing, all the services that you offer. Let them know how they can find you.
Absolutely. My name, Kaedrich, is a key that opens so many doors. So if you were to type that name into Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, you'll find me. If you go to kaedrich.com, that's my website. So just knowing my name is that key to start to unlock those doors.
Beautiful, beautiful. Any parting comments for the listeners?
Just remember that the supernatural is completely natural. There's never been a separation. That separation has just been an illusion for various reasons. We don't have to go into all why the reasons are. The separation is an illusion. You are a spiritual and a physical being. The world around you is spiritual and physical, and it is perfectly natural to tune back in, to be aware of that, and start to interact. And that's what it means to be fully human, is to embrace your physical and your spiritual side, all of it together.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Well, Kaedrich, thank you so much for joining us here on Don't Turn Around. And to you, the listener community, well, you heard it here. There is a beautiful dialectic which enables us to be present in both the spiritual and the physical. So embrace it. It will make your world bigger and just more amazing every single day. Thank you so much for supporting the show. Thank you for your 5-star reviews. Please make sure you're following us on social media at Don't Turn Around Podcast on Instagram. We'll see you next time.
don't know what really causes this phenomenon. So this has been going on for a very long time, but every time